Hello, today we're going to be learning how to print your lino cut block. So what you're going to need for this activity is the block that you've already cut. You're going to need a brayer. They come in different sizes. Whichever size you want to use is fine. You're going to need printing ink. You're going to need a spoon or a tool called a baron, and then you're also going to need some paper for printing. All right, for our first print, we're going to print on white paper using black ink, just because it's the easiest thing to see, so we can decide when we do our proof print, which is our first print that we do, if we need to make any adjustments to our block. So the first thing we're going to do is uncap the ink, and ink is nothing but binder and pigment. It is different than paint. Okay, so you're going to make a nice little line of ink. And you're going to be putting your ink on the plexiglass plates, the same plates we use for mono printing. I'm using a cutting board just because I'm at home. And then you're going to take your brayer. This is a brayer. It's a roller with a handle. And you're going to roll out that ink. Your goal is to get that ink nice and spread out with even coverage on the roller. Not too much ink, not too little ink. When it starts to make that sound, like that sticky sound, then you know you're pretty good to go. Once you have your ink rolled, you're going to go ahead and roll it back and forth onto your block. I always like to go horizontally and vertically. Okay. Once you've inked your block, you're going to go ahead and lay your paper on top. When you do this, try to center as best you can, because we are going to be framing this out. You don't want to put it in the corner. You want to try to get it nice in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered, but towards the center. And then you're going to take the back of your spoon or the tool called the baron, and you're going to hold down with your hand, and you're going to rub in a circular motion. Okay? I find that sometimes I also like to use my hands to do this, whatever kind of works for you. And our goal here is to get even ink distribution on our paper. We want the ink to be nice and solid. Okay? So really make sure you get in here into the corners, and you want to give a fair amount of pressure. Okay? Now this is our first print. If it doesn't turn out great, that is okay. Remember, we're developing our craft here. This is a trial and error process. It is okay for things to fail. That is how we learn and how we fix our mistakes. All right. Typically what I want to do at this point is just kind of peek. I'll hold my hand here and I'll peek and I'll see how things are looking. Right. Things are looking pretty good. I see even distribution, so I'm going to go ahead and pull. This is called pulling your print. Right. And now I can take a look and see. And I can see here, based off of my print, that some areas in here didn't register. That means I didn't cut quite deep enough, or I used too much ink. Either of those things, like you can see in these little holes here where the ink filled in. That kind of means that I might have used too much ink, or I need to go a little bit deeper, which means I need to get my linoleum cutter back out and re-dig out those areas, okay? Now let me show you a sample of what something looks like if I didn't press hard enough. Here's a print that I did. You can see here in these areas where the ink didn't distribute enough and I didn't get enough coverage. Okay, that could easily happen to you as well. And what I'm going to do now to prepare for my next print is I'm going to take a damp paper towel and just wipe off the ink. You could also do this like a baby wipe as well. All right, and you're going to get some ink in some of those holes and stuff, and that's okay. Like, it's okay if it's not perfectly clean. I just want to wipe that first layer of ink off. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and any of those lines that I see that got too filled in, I'm just going to go ahead and give them another little cut, just so I will see those white spaces. Okay, so if any areas didn't register the way you wanted it to, go ahead back with the linoleum cutter and recut in those areas. All right, one thing I forgot to mention is to make sure that you number your papers as you go ahead and print. All right, this is my very first print. It's called the artist proof. So I'm just gonna label this on the back, AP, just so I can keep track. Okay, and we'll explain a little bit later why we're gonna do this. Okay, so my first one's called the artist proof. Okay, I'm gonna print this again now that I've recut it, and this is gonna be number 1. Okay, so artist proof is your first, and then you'll just label 1 to however many you make. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing again. Roll my ink. I think I used a little bit too much ink last time, so this time I'm gonna try to use less. Okay, and that is very much could easily happen to you. All right, it's evenly covered. Again, I'm going to take my paper, try to get it kind of centered here. Hold down. Take my spoon and burnish. Circular motions. Again, I may have pressed down also a little too hard last time, which is why some of those lines filled in. Again, it's a trial and error process. If it doesn't come out the way you want, you have lots of tries to get it the way that you want. Try to make sure you get along the edges here as well. All right, I'm gonna take a peek, see how it looks. All right, I'm gonna lift or pull my print, and it looks better this time. You can see the difference in my printing. In the little sections of the line, you can now see them. Same with the bottom, okay? So I used too much ink last time and I pressed too hard. That's just something that you're going to have to figure out on your own. Right, now that I've made a successful print and I know that it's printing the way I want, now I can do some experimentation with some other things. I would encourage you to look around the classroom, see what other kind of papers are available. Scrapbooking paper, the papers you made when you mono printed, old textbook or dictionary pages work great. You can prepare your own paper. You can print on anything, so not anything, but you can print on a lot of different surfaces. So experiment with that. You do not need to ask my permission for experimentation unless it's something dangerous. So, you know, if you want to try to print on cloth or foil or something that you've never tried before, I would encourage you to do that. Another thing, there are lots of different colors of inks as well. I like to use the black and white paper first just to see how it's registering because it looks really clean and crisp. But once you've done that, you can go ahead and experiment with any colors of inks. You can create gradations of colors of inks. So go ahead and experiment with that as well. Okay. Another thing, you do not have to necessarily wipe down your print between, or your block between each print. If you've done a print and you have like way too much ink, like this one, you're gonna wanna wipe it off. So I encourage you to play around, to experiment, and make several prints. Remembering to label your prints, okay? So your artist proof is number 1, your first print, and then number 1, I forgot to label this one, but you're gonna wanna label as you go, and I'll let you know why in a future video, okay? Next, I'm gonna show you how to clean up all of your tools and how to put them away.